Welcome everyone, this is Tanya from Falcon Books Publishing here, and today we have Andre Consciencia, and we're going to be discussing his new book, Through the Soul Mirrors to the Sphere of the Sun. I'm very excited to have you here. It's wonderful to talk to you. A long time. It actually was wonderful to meet up. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Andre and also give you a little bit of background about him and his path. Okay, so Andre lives in Moita in Portugal. He's been a dedicated practitioner for over 21 years now. He joined Fraternus Hermetica, an order base that works with Baden, and while he was still a minor, and had an initiator that stood even after the order vanished. He also has worked with his initiator for 20 years. He is experienced in other magical systems such as the Order of Michael's Grail, which roots is the Fortune, Thelmic, Golden Dawn, and also Astrum Argentum. Andre also teaches neo-shamanism. He has his own active group of practitioners. Aside from his shamanic path, he also puts us used to a simple way of teaching the initiated. He has been through the hermetic and magical systems of Franz Baden, as well as through the systems presented by the Rosicrucian orders, Thelmic and organizations, and Thelmic organizations. He still has been active member of Horus Maat's Lodge. Aside from his magical path, Andre is an accomplished author, poet, playwright, musician, and founder of the theatre company. In addition to his work, he also has a Neoplatonic approach to poetry, fiction, and music, including theatre. He has been a member of various magical orders and has written non-fiction articles and which are in the archives and finally being published by Cyrus Limited Esoterica. This is one book of this was The Way of the Abrahadabra, which is intended to strip formula from the folk rituals of Thelma, and it's also most religious and popular aspects of it, presenting elaborating instead through the Hermetic methods. So here is an amazing, accomplished, rounded approach to magic in all aspects as well. It's absolutely fascinating. So first of all, I'd like to, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about your path, Andre.
My path is, well, 21 years, but it feels filled with many things. So I can only do resume just an introduction. So I started. My family is a spiritualist family, so I had contact with the occult since young, since I can remember actually. But nobody would explain that to me very well. Of course, my grandmother used to incorporate some guides, and these guides would give us lessons, esoteric lessons. My father at the time would incorporate lesser spirits, well, bad things. But still, I didn't understand. I think I understood what was going on, but if I asked my parents, they would not explain it to me. So the first thing I did was get the Book of Spirits by Allan Kardec. And then other works by Allan Kardec, spiritist or spiritualist works. And I joined the Spiritist Center, and I realized they were very dogmatic in the sense that they had found some solutions to questions, but if you had more questions than that, no, let's get back to our own questions. So I left the center and I started exploring by myself and knowing other people that were involved. At the time, the internet was starting to be a thing. You couldn't use it as much as you use it today. But I was able to meet some people through the internet. And from there, I got eventually to Aleister Crowley first. First to the Theosophical works, then to Aleister Crowley, and then to Franz Barton by someone who was a member of Innate Forces. I actually did. I kept with Aleister Crowley, although my main path was in the Barton tradition, and I think the Franz Barton is actually the key that made me successful in all other fields of occultism. I would have find it much harder without going through initiation into hermetics in particular, because that's also the key for the other books by Franz Barton. Eventually, Nema was a great influence, but this comes later, or Nema. This comes later, but it comes into play here because I joined the Horus-Mat Lodge. That is a lodge that Nema founded together with the members of the Groove of the Star and the Snake. I joined this order, and in the mandalas of the order, that is in the, like, we don't call it grades, but it could be something like that. So the things you can unblock in the work inside the order. I realized I was getting to the end of what was written there. And one of the things you have to do when you are matured inside the order is writing books and teaching. So you have to pass on what you have learned, not only in the lodge, because the lodge isn't a traditional order, so to speak. It's a lodge of magicians from many different traditions. And it has a core of its own, but it's not mandatory. So this was one of the things, but it came because I was already treading that path. I had founded my own group of 4 people. There was a core group of 4 people and then a group of 8 people. And in this group, we had a structure where we started as things of pure light, and we had to learn to express ourselves as that. Started as matured adults, but then we would strip away our own illusions, even as adults. So the black stage started afterwards, and we worked with the spheres, and even some negative. They weren't really negative beings from the spheres. They appeared like that when they were challenging us, and if you managed to succeed, they would appear in their original form. So Jupiter comes into play here, because I was working with Jupiter already, and when it shone, when it expanded and showed its original form, it was about prosperity, not only from the world to me, but from me to the world. And it was part of the job of divine providence for me. And it included writing. And I wrote some, I wanted to show my thanks to Aleister Crowley. That's why I wrote some of the books, The Way of Abrahadabra, actually, to seriously limited esoterica. And The Path of Ipsos is my thanks to Nemo. And Falcon books, I wanted to thank Franz Barden, obviously, more even than the others. And I had come in contact with Falcon books by researching what William Mistel was doing, because I hadn't heard of him for a while. And I searched William Mistel, and Falcon books appeared with books from William Mistel. And then I found the book by Nenad, and I was intrigued. It sounded very interesting. So when I searched for a publisher inside the tradition of Barton, I thought of Falcon Books right away, and I sent an email, and then we started interacting.
Yes, and now it's history. Yes, wonderful. Moving on to publications, I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about your new title, Through the Soul Mirror to the Sphere of the Sun. And what does this book offer that is different from the title? Obviously, it's discussing the soul mirror. And could you tell us what is the difference? What does it offer that's different than Franz Barden's initiation to energetics, his area with soul mirror training?
Yes. First thing, I'd like to contemplate the title a little. So it's Through the Soul Mirror to the Sphere of the Sun. So it shows that one can get to the sphere of the sun through the soul mirror and passing through. The work of initiation into hermetics by Franz Barden, I think it is really about the soul mirror. It is the objective, the ennoblement of the soul. Of course, it will get you powers and faculties, but what Barden tries to teach you all the time, and that other occultists don't, is that the virtues come first, and they bring about the powers. You can only complete the exercises in initiation into hermetics if you have the right virtues, because you'll give up if any other way. So my book, Through the Soul Mirrors, one of the ideas of Through the Soul Mirror to the Sphere of the Sun is turning all that we can learn in initiation into hermetics toward the perfection of the soul mirror. I mean, literally all things. For instance, when you are working with the magic mirror, I don't mean the soul mirror, but the magic mirror, you got to the stage when you can see things in the mirror, and you want to see and meet your own virtues. How do they look? How do they express themselves? What do they have to teach me directly? Or if you are learning visualization, and I mean visualization not only with the eyes, but with all the senses, like Barton teaches us, you are working with your own virtues as well, and you are materializing them with your own senses. So the thing is, if you look at it, it's kind of a book of materialization of your own virtues. It also works with your faults, of course, but the faults don't stand a great chance when you are really materializing your virtues. Of course, the vices, they will always keep coming back. That's why we are humans. But it's not a great deal once you learn how to work and empower yourself with your virtues and faculties. The book goes beyond initiation into a method. I mean, in a way, it's first of all, it's not like a bargain companion or a commentary to initiation into a method. It does include most of the things that are in initiation into a method, but it's an alliance between uh, between myself as a magician and an occultist and Franz Barton. So in all steps, there is work that is original from me and work from Barton, and even work from there is a third element that is important in another way. This book that is Nima, the Forgotten Ones, will get there. The book explores even some things like the cosmic letters. You are to learn the cosmic letters, not like you do in the key to true Kabbalah, because there's the key to true Kabbalah for that. You are to learn to cultivate the virtues that correspond to each letter, and those will gain the powers of the letter. And the magical tools from practice to magical education. You will create, like an alchemist works with, an alchemist reproduces, an inner alchemist reproduces what the outer alchemist does in his own soul. And the same thing we are doing with the tools. So we are building the virtues that correspond to the tools inside of it. And this will give us the powers of these tools. Included is work with the spheres as well. So you are working your own soul mirror inside each of the spheres. And a particular attention is given to the sun sphere because that's where the adept from through the soul mirror, the sphere of the sun, will land. It's kind of the crystallization that comes in the end of the book, the coagula. The thing is that the adept goes to the sphere of the sun and works his soul, the perfection of the soul in the sphere of the sun, and according to the sphere of the sun. This is not according to our own plane, but to the sphere of the sun, and he comes back and he works in a way that he becomes that being of the sun on earth.
So that's ask you as well about in the book, at the beginning of the book, you discuss that it's actually based on investigating the Forgotten Ones by Nema. Now, I wonder if you could describe a little bit what you mean by that and how that relates to the context of, because this is kind of like the foundation of the book, isn't it? And from this, we understand all the our own sort of innate vices. Could you sort of elaborate on the Forgotten Ones a little bit more?
The Forgotten Ones are Nima comes from, or Nima comes from a school that is Thelemic. So she, first of all, she was a mystic for around 40 years, and then she discovered magic through books by Aleister Crowley and Kenneth Grant, etc. So when she starts writing about magic, her first book is Mahat Magic. She adopts a Thelemic language, that is a language that first comes from the thought of Aleister Crowley. Yet her thought is, I find, much more similar to that of Franz Barton, and she constantly studies. She studies the weaknesses and strengths and what we must get. She says 90% of magic is trash removal. What we have to get rid of, and what we must cultivate. But the main system in this sense is connected to the forgotten ones. So the forgotten ones are a multitude of things. They are countless, probably. But she focuses on 7 to 8 main forgotten ones that are connected or that are easy to connect with our chakras, with our centers. She works with them through the chakras, but there are many ways to work with them. They represent the survival urges that are with us since prehistoric times, and since the caveman even. The first ones, and they start to evolve with us. So there are more complex forgotten. This means, for instance, from the forgotten one of anger to the forgotten one of curiosity, which is in the third eye, or altruism in the bindu, or religiosity in the crown chakra. These are more complex ones. When they are collective, maybe you can see altruism as a vice, like, let's say, gambling. It's not a feeling, so to speak. Altruism is noble, but we do not practice altruism consciously. Most of the time we practice altruism to a survival urge. The survival urges are not necessarily bad. They helped us evolve throughout time and survive, as the name tells. The challenge, though, is processing them consciously and even sublimating them, and it's extract from them virtues. They are like raw material, and they are not only individual, they are collective, so they are in the whole species of mankind, and most animals as well. So when we work with the soul mirror and apply it to the forgotten ones, we are bettering ourselves, but we are also understanding the humanity as a whole. That's the foundation that from which this book builds on. But then it goes to great lengths. It doesn't always stick with the forgotten.
I was curious to ask that when she was talking about the forgotten ones, it almost sounded like it was they're entities within their own right. But these are kind of more, are you still describing these more as innate forces within us? Or is she talking about something that is like, for example, when people develop larvae, is she talking about the kind of the forces that are already sort of there wanting to kind of grab onto those sort of vices?
Yes, that's true. There's this aspect to the forgotten ones. They exist on themselves, and even our instincts, if you look at it, they exist on themselves. They think for themselves. They communicate among themselves, and you can describe them, yes, as it depends on what one thinks of as a larva, but yes, it can have all the qualities of a larva. And this is the forgotten ones are like giant larvae because they are collective. They are fed by every single person, and when they are unconsciously feeding these instincts and responding to these instincts and sacrificing to these instincts, and the instincts give something back. Nima has the theory that probably many of the ancient gods were representations of the forgotten ones and the different names. And if you fed those gods, they would give you something back.
Interesting. Yeah, yeah. So, because I know you that from within the book, you take these as, I guess, if I want to sort of compare to Franz Barden's Soul Mirror book, so you use the core, sort of a bit like the core sort of vices or that are within us, and then you sort of break them down into dealing with them in sort of. Could you talk a bit about how you've sort of broken it down and how you develop them, and so you've got them in also within their relative element as well, so you discuss them, and obviously in the gross aspect then break it down into the elements, which is very similar to Barden's. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, the process of it, and how different and it is from Barden's, and what's similar about Barden?
The thing about the forgotten ones is just like the ego. So many people talk about destroying the ego or whatever. That's when it's only a priority if your ego controls you. But some don't see it that way. The ego is the enemy. Anyway, the thing is not about destroying the ego or even fighting the ego. One just needs to divide. The ego doesn't exist in itself. It is different components, different elements interacting together and feeding each other. So when you divide the ego in its components, you see that they don't stand for themselves. And if you consciously are able to divide, to perceive these things separately, they lose all power. The same happens with the forgotten ones as entities. When you learn to study them in this dissective manner, as the soul mirror does, you break them into many different components that are present in yourself, in your habits and attitudes. And the forgotten one starts losing independent power. It's all about what you can do now. It's all about yourself and the way you work yourself. Of course, you will want to you don't want to lose the ability to tap into these psychic forces that are collective. But when you go back to them, you can do it safely and use this psychic power to cultivate virtues and to access what is going on collectively with humanity. The way toward the forgotten ones in my book, Into the Soul Mirror, is very much like the Soul Mirror of Franz Barden. There aren't many differences. You just take the forgotten ones and you insert them on the soul mirror, divide them between the elements, and then what are all the traits that are connected to this forgotten ones. Nema works them differently. Nema in math magic suggests that that's when one becomes an adept and is raised to level 6, that corresponds to the sun. One works with forgotten ones directly. So there is a sort of retreat and a ritual where the person will push all these survival urges to the edge, and then will consume them with what he calls the black flame. That is like the vacancy of mind, but it also has an emotional aspect. It's like it's the Tao or Tao actually. So you fuse the forgotten ones with Tao, and that's how she works with sublimating the forgotten ones. And from there on, she can also call them back if she wants to channel them to a specific purpose, like we do with elementaries, for instance, in Franz Barden. But the others huge forces.
So in a way, you're sort of saying she sort of harnesses those forces and gets in contact with them in order, and then sort of conquers them, but then uses them for her own sort of when it's necessary as well.
Yeah, from the black flame, she cannot be. She starts by being consumed, but then she taps into the emptiness of the Tao, and the emptiness of the Tao consumes the forgotten ones themselves.
Okay, I understand. Let's move on to our next question. So, does the book require any specific skills? And if so, are these skills developed in the book? So, for example, someone who is probably maybe just beginning in their magical journey, and they want to develop themselves and also work through gaining more kind of control over their mind and their body and their spirit. How does this book help them?
This book is actually ideal for all that. It seems to only have about 158 pages, but it starts from the beginning and it ends pretty far from where you started, so to speak. You work you don't need special abilities. You just need the will to do it, and I won't even say the patience to practice it, because patience is cultivated. You just need to do it when you can. You practice when you can. It's a practical book. You practice, and the more you practice, the more you will be able to practice. You won't feel impatient anymore. That's all that is needed. Of course, inspiration comes along the way as well. You start practicing, and it will inspire you to practice more. It develops all the skills by working mystically and magically. So magic is always here as well. The spine bone is mystical, then the muscles are magical, so to speak. And it develops little by little, and it draws a lot from soul mirrors. That's the name of the book. It's not solely a book about the soul mirror, but it does use the soul mirror as a main tool. Yes. The soul mirror is always the mystic aspect, and the magical aspect are actual magical practices. And you go little by little, just like it's similar in that way to initiation into the methods. The tone is my own tone, and the practices aren't the same, but they are the same, but they are more than what is in initiation into the methods. Because in every step I try to find my own in every step of initiation into hermetics, I try to find my own language and my own advice and my own practices to give. And then it starts developing into something of itself, a whole system of its own. It's hard, of course, to explain in detail all these things. That's why I wrote the book, because I cannot really tell in detail how the skills are developed one by one all the way. At least in this time span.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to have a little break.